I'm joined today by Leonard Donnelly, who's the CEO at Waylay. Welcome to the show, Leonard. Great to see you again.
Lovely to see you, Dez, and you're top of the day to you and bottom of the day to me.
Indeed, we are quite literally on the other side of the planet from each other. I wonder if we could start with us, just a little bit of a sense of, get to know you. I wonder if we could start with you giving our audience a brief introduction to you and your background, as I said, in a little bit of a get to know you, as it were.
Yeah, Leonard Donnelly is my name, obviously. I'm a technology entrepreneur by background. I think what got me into the technology interest is that I got a first class honours in Trinity, which a very interesting study on why tech companies were failing. And I came up with a very simple principle. It's because the person leading the company and the personality type will determine success, failure, outcomes. So first class honours, and I said, okay, I'll go try this myself. Got involved with a few people in the consulting industry. We decided to create a software development company that became a company that became hugely successful in network management over a 7-year period. Sold that company to an American company, Four Systems, in '99. And I've gone on to do 6 other projects since. So that's just maybe a quick introduction.
Fantastic. And it is an exciting background. We'll have links to your profile and whatnot for people to get a bit more insight into you. I wonder if you could give us a little bit of a look into kind of, what's a day in the life of Leonard Donnelly like currently in your role as CEO at Waylay, and particularly working with your team there at Waylay and your partners and customers?
Yeah. Well, I'm an Irish guy, and so I tend to be quite relaxed, but there's another dimension to my personality, which is being quite intense. I think being the CEO of a company, and I think, is all about leading people, but also leading people by example. And so what I try to do, no matter what the function is within the company, I try to demonstrate, that the yes you can, aspect of everything in business life is very important, and to be very ambitious. And so I think that's probably the most important thing. And I do that day to day, and I provide leadership by actually doing things, because, our company is not an enormous company right now. So therefore, it's very important that what you're really doing is you're not just building a sort of a team based around, ambition and confidence. You're actually training people on the job, so to speak, to kind of show them how you do things, but also you're kind of stretching people a little bit. So that's a very important part of what I do. And then there's the other side, of being a CEO, which is kind of all the practical stuff, which I'm okay at, but it's not the most not the most enjoyable part of the job. I think where I fundamentally have always been very good with people is building a strategy for a company, because if you do not have a well thought through strategy, and no matter how ambitious or how confident you are, ultimately you're unlikely to succeed. And so success failure is really all about strategy, and that's what I'm particularly good at.
Yeah, well, I think many of the most successful brands will be running to that very same playbook. Great strategy, good roadmap, and go-to-market planning. A great team around you. I imagine there's a large portion of your time, though, it's also actually out in the field talking to your ecosystem of partners and integrators, as well as your customers.
Yeah, that's absolutely fundamentally important. And thanks be to God, the whole era of not being able to travel, has gone away. I think if I have one frustration is not having enough time to spend, as more time with customers. But we're very active. We've customers, obviously in North America, the USA is our dominant market. India, Japan, obviously throughout Europe, and even in South Asia as well. So it can be logistically a little bit challenging, but it's really important to spend face time with people, because the whole business hasn't changed. It's all about trust, so therefore you can't build relationships exclusively in a virtual medium. You need to actually make sure that the people that you're dealing with, that they have a sense of you and you have a sense of them, and from there trust builds, and trust in business is really fundamental.
Indeed. Relationships and trust, with that rapport that you develop through those relationships comes trust, but then you also have to earn and maintain it. Now, your website describes Waylay as, quote, Democratizing Data Insights for All, and that Waylay believes low-code automation liberates natural human intelligence and creates new opportunities in value creation by making artificial intelligence, information technology, and operational technology data accessible to everyone, which is quite a mouthful. I wonder if we could just delve into each of those in separate parts. Let's just start beyond the obvious. What does democratizing data insights for all mean in Waylay, as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, I think you need to stand back a little bit and look at the world is changing very, very fast, and the demographics of the world that we live in are changing very, very fast too. And the economic pressure on businesses is obviously ever present, and particularly at the moment. And so when you roll all that back together, you've fundamentally got a problem which comes down to two things. One, an excessive dependency on, let's call it high-end IT software engineering skills. And then on the other end, you've got a demographic which is diminishing quite rapidly in relation to knowledge. And so when we talk about democratizing an environment where people can cooperate to get these critical insights and data, it's about actually creating an environment where the dependency on those bipolar sides actually reduces, because you're bringing people together in an environment that enables them to actually cooperate together. And we're an automation company, and you can't avoid the reality that the dependency on large numbers of people is actually reduced. But that tracks the demographic that the world is actually moving to. So therefore, these skill shortfalls are actually addressed in a kind of a co-pilot way, by bringing in automation into business and public life.
Indeed, and I think there's always this misnomer that automation, and particularly hyper automation in your case, and artificial intelligence, whether it's robotic process automation all the way through to machine learning and machine intelligence, that apparently we're going to be hands off. And I think it's the case that it's actually the opposite. We can scale and automate these things, but we also do need the oversight of people that actually own this. There was a great incident the other day where somebody booked an airline ticket, and we're talking to the chatbot, and without naming the airline, and the chatbot made a commitment on behalf of the brand, and when the fellow followed through because of something that took place and wasn't able to make the flight, tried to get a refund, the chatbot offered, but the airline said, well, actually, that's not our policy. And of course, he'd taken screenshots and actually won the case. So that, this automation process had created this commitment that wasn't legally part of their policy, but they were, in court, they were held to it. And I know, your organization overall, you've got a number of great patents, you've got some amazing awards. A part of what you do is that whole sort of low code automation and hyperscaling of that. And it's not necessarily something that everyone in our audience will be overly familiar with. And I might get you in a moment to describe some of that. But I know when we were talking the other day, you mentioned that many brands talk about quote unquote doing automation or quote unquote rules engines. But as you said to me the other day, there's a big difference between sort of, a Fiat Bambino, one of my favorite cars, versus a Ferrari engine when you talk about the complex scale and types of orchestration that you do. I wonder if you could just briefly sort of talk about what that means in your world and what some of the challenges that clients bring to you, customers bring to you, look like, and how you approach that with what you can offer.
Yeah, I mean, every single industry, whether it's insurance or telecoms or in the industrial domain, finance, everybody's basically creating a kind of a virtual world in software where they've been doing kind of automation in a very traditional way. They're building software in a very traditional way. That's not sustainable. So therefore, you, like a good architect, what do you do in that situation? Well, you would imagine that you would reuse the very best approach that one could take, pre-built, and drop it into a complex domain, and it would give you greater security in making sure that the house and windows, and the chimney flues and all that kind of, critical stuff, is what you focus your time on. But the fundamentals, are addressed, and the foundation, the structure, all that stuff is in place. So that's really what we do. And the reason that I mentioned the Ferrari, as the Bambino to the Ferrari, is that yes, there are lots of people that have lots of different Rubik's cubes, so to speak, and we're at the very high end of dealing with complex problems. And the reason that you need to be at the high end of something is that the extent of the dependency and the amount of software investment that people have made, it means that the problem is now very, very, very complex. So it doesn't matter. Even in car manufacturing, you're talking about millions and multiples of millions of rule executions, happening on a daily basis, and so therefore you've got to understand that you're in the problem solving domain to make sure that, for example, a car manufacturing plant doesn't go down because a robotic welding system, has veered off from a calibration point of view. And then for all sorts of reasons, QA kicks in, everything has to shut down. So we're a company that is dealing with all that complexity of information and making sure that these situations don't occur. And actually, in the company, we've rule everything we touch, we improve by 80%. And that's as a consequence of actually taking this architectural view from the outset and enabling our customers to de-risk what they're doing.
It's quite a big challenge, 80%. And looking at the demo that yourself and your associate the other day showed me, one of the big things that jumped out at me was not only can you do that automation and at scale with the complexity you're talking about, but you made it so intelligent that you could effectively talk to it. And one of the demos you gave me on the platform was that you could bring up the rules engine, interrogate part of it and see how it was running, why it was running, and get beyond that black box thing that we all worry about with machine intelligence of any form, but also that you could then have a conversation with it and query it in a sort of this GPT type experience of talking to the system, talking to the platform. And what really impressed me was you were doing it live while it was running, as it were, in the demo environment. The automation was running, the data was flowing through, the decision being made, but you were querying it as it went through. So that point in time, that it was able to give you responses and alerts. And I know one of the third elements that we were going to talk about from the notes I made from your website was your website talks about making AI or IT and OT data accessible to everyone, which in any description is a heady challenge. I wonder if you could just maybe talk about how Waylay goes about that, because I know a lot of things that I saw in the demo just were astoundingly exciting. Maybe just delve into a little bit of how you go about making that AI, IT and OT data accessible to everyone.
Yeah, I'm just going to draw you back to the analogy that you were referring to in relation to our natural language processing Gen I capable version of Waylay. It's really quite groundbreaking in the sense that it literally is, if we take the aviation example, it literally is that you have a pilot and you have a co-pilot. And the Gen AI enablement of our platform is the co-pilot. But what is absolutely new is doing that on live streaming data in the same way that an airplane is a critical asset. And telemetry is hugely important, and accuracy of information is hugely important. So we're enabling people in mission critical places, and everything is mission critical. A bank is mission critical. A car manufacturing plant is mission critical. A power plant, all these kind of things. Everything in our world is mission critical. So therefore, this ability to actually adapt and use this co-pilot capability, but critically, not on the basis of manuals, or data it's useful, but doing it on live data and having that real-time understanding of what's going on, and that explainability is really what we facilitate. Now, dealing with the second part of the question, okay? Let's say if we take an industrial example. So in the industrial world, the way that software was built was very, very different to the way, with the cloud and IT revolution, the nature of software building are like two culturally different places. And so therefore, the first problem that a company like Waylay has to solve is to make it easy to normalize what we call the OT data, or the operational technology data, to be associated with the more modern apps, so things like SAP, Salesforce, these kind of things. What we do, again, it goes back to our rules engine, is that we have taken an approach in maths. It's a Bayesian approach, and it's a very complex problem to create orchestrations. So basically stitching, of these different different worlds that are syntax different, and to actually create a normalization of workflows between these two things. So we do that incredibly well. But again, it goes back to the need for a Ferrari engine. You need to not only be able to do that very flexibly, but you need to then do that at huge scale. So that's really key to what we do. Now, from the AI dimension, it's very important that Waylay is not understood to be an AI company. Yes, we do incredibly intelligently. We're that little brain in terms of every millisecond transaction, that we're that brain that is actually learning and doing intelligent event correlation. But what we don't do is disenfranchise our customers from relative to the investment that they've made in AI. Their problem, though, is that they've spent enormous amounts of money in machine learning and building, really sophisticated stuff. But then when it comes to integrating that with the actual, let's imagine a telecoms network, you're bringing all that investment and then operationalizing that at scale, that's when they get stuck. And that's what Waylay makes it really easy to do. We have a framework, bring your own model. So that's effectively bring your own AI, your investment, and we'll operationalize it at huge scale. A very good example, one of our customers is Tata Communications. And they're now in a position to actually design, test, and operationalize a new service in 5 hours globally. That's unheard of.
Wow.
And if you got to imagine that all the different legacy systems that they have, they've got a network, they've got individual subscribers, you've got billing, you've got all manner of things. All these things are different; they're disaggregated. So what Waylay does, it sits there as a companion, like a co-pilot, and it enables the very easy in low code and in no code as well to actually kind of build these services incredibly quickly, but with very little domain knowledge, and that's key.
Yes, and in fact, even more so now than ever, which is a horrible term to use, but it is really the only way to describe it, given the geopolitical situation around the world, given the economic situation we are, and essentially the funding available for resourcing. It always struck me when I looked at what you did that people can do a hell of a lot more with the human resource they have, as well as the data infrastructure and systems. And you mentioned that example of the telecommunications space, which we'll pivot to with regard to an event in a moment. But I've seen so many companies looking to offer either private wireless networks or fixed networks or public networks, where that blending between their business support systems at the front end for onboarding clients or creating these services, and then transitioning to the network and operational piece of the operational support systems, or BSS and OSS. They're often independent little elements that have to be glued together. And one of the things that really struck me was that you provided not only the ability to develop these systems and integrations, but also then operationalize them and scale them, but also then, in one of the terms you talk about in your website, is democratization. I know it's one of the big punchlines people talk about, that people with those domain skills in various areas, if someone is in billing, or someone's in that finance area, or if someone's in support or the technology space, they don't actually have to be an expert at data analysis or at rules engines. They can have a plain English conversation with your Gen AI engine to have a conversation with the platform and ask what happened in the past, or what's currently happening, or what may happen. I think that for me was a really, really exciting, I guess, leveling of the playing field for everyone to be able to onboard into your capabilities with their existing business and not have to sit down and read the manual for 4 hours. And get those two elements that I see a lot of people looking for, which is a faster time to market and a faster time to return on investment.
Actually, one key thing, and it's, if you're in business, yes, I mean, you're doing problem resolution, you want to make sure you're happy customers, low customer churn rate and all that kind of stuff. But the big area that most business struggle with is new product and particularly new service creation. And if you have a great idea and you have a bunch of people, very talented team, if they have to hand over their requirements to an IT software team, and then wait 6 months to get something back, only to discover it's not going to work, it's not what we asked for, that was a bad idea, all that kind of stuff. What we do is we skinny that down to you can ideate and create things very fast. You can go out there and do test with customers. You can react. You can kind of sensitize how to package things, pricing, all that kind of stuff, and it all gets rolled up. And that is actually very, very important, because a lot of our customers are extremely big, and they don't have the agility built in the way that the organizations are built. So you see a lot of this, oh, let's reinvent ourselves, and a lot of sloganization, but actually you need tooling, that actually enables you to actually be agile, and to create new services quickly. And I can cite one really interesting example of why you don't need a huge team anymore. So one of our customers is the second, if not the biggest, let's call it agricultural machinery company in the world, and they've got tens of thousands of assets that are Waylay, so to speak. Do you know how big their team is? And this is a combination of IT people, and product people. It's 5 people. So they're running
Wow.
a global, service for their dealership networks to ensure that the average time that to actually identify that there's a problem and to fix a problem anywhere in let's say particularly in the USA is going to be 30 minutes, whereas that was 3 days in the pre-Waylay day. But the key thing is a tiny team, and look what a tiny team can do with the tools that we're providing them.
Yeah, in the telco world, the last sort of 3.5 decades of my sort of being involved in it, we always sort of worked on those rules of 8s, which it used to take 8 months to do things, and we went down to 8 weeks, and then finally we tried to get it down to 8 days. And not so long ago, in fact, as of 2019, was sort of the rollout of 5G. Everyone was then looking for 8 minutes, and I know that's something that you'll be very familiar with. Now, you pivoted to telco, and that was very, very appropriate, because I know when we were speaking the other day, you mentioned that you're actually taking part in GSMA's annual Global Mobile World Congress event, or MWC, in Barcelona this year. I wonder if you could tell us about that, and maybe just mention some of the things that folk can look forward to from you and your team from Waylay there at the event.
Absolutely. I know Gen I is all the buzzy place, but if you think about the Gen AI approach that we're taking based on live data and actually being able to show troubleshooting in lots of different situations, obviously in telecoms associated with networks, but also in financial services, let's say even fraud use cases, and then in industrial scenarios where an awful lot of telecoms companies, for example, you want to actually move their infrastructure to support industry. But what we'll be showing is, don't like the word bleeding edge, but it actually is bleeding edge. It's probably the most advanced approach that can be taken, and not just from a hyper automation perspective, but actually showing the key thing, which is human beings, when they are looking at change and a next cycle of technological evolution, there's a natural conservatism, there's a natural how do we build trust in this. And I think key to what we're demonstrating at Mobile World Congress is a real-time audit trail, real-time explainability. It's not the disenfranchisement of a human being, it's this cooperative model where you've got your automated co-pilot, so to speak. You're using language. So we talk about natural language processing, but you're talking to a system that understands the complexity of all the data that it actually has to work with. But you're in control. You're in absolute control all the time. So that's the kind of human-centric solutions that we will be demonstrating at Mobile World Congress.
Well, we'll definitely have full details in wherever anyone sees this video, whether it's on the video platform or whether it's in digital and social spaces we promote on, with all the links to your website, to your details of where you will be and where your stand is and which hall and the dates. And we would love everybody to go and see it in person and introduce themselves to you and your team. And I know one of our associates is going to be there from the UK, boots on the ground, looking to catch up with you on camera as well. Now, your role, as many CEO roles do, your role affords you a very unique lens through which you see the world. I wonder if you could just give us a little insight into kind of the types of trends or the key trends that you see coming over the horizon over the next 3 to 5 years that your peer CEO should be discussing in the boardroom, and particularly in the context of bringing you and your team to that conversation with regard to how you can help them address some of those big changes that you see coming over the horizon.
The most important one, not the most important one, but I think the most obvious one, is companies cannot sustainably keep building and supporting digital transformation, the way that they're doing it, that absolutely has to change. And we see the canaries in the coal mine with the early customers who have actually been through that horror story and actually just can't afford, for all sorts of reasons, to actually build and maintain software the way they've been doing it. So I think, and no matter how big you are, I think if you're seeking to dodge that bullet, I think it's a big mistake. The second one is very important, because automation will play a role in absolutely every facet in life, and I'm sure even in different religions at some point. But so that there is always an underlying logic for why. And actually, I put my finger on it earlier. Is that when you stand back and look at the demographic, cliff that humanity is kind of rapidly approaching, and it's not just people talk about it in the context of Europe, the United States. It's not. There are huge demographic problems coming in China and other places. And so the reality is that societies and economies and businesses have to function. And so therefore the shrinkage in talent and skills is very real, and we're at that kind of approaching that tipping point, that 27 to 2030 period, and so therefore it's inevitable, and therefore companies like Waylay, I'm sure we're not going to be absolutely unique. I'd like to think we'll be the best leader, all that kind of stuff, but companies like Waylay are going to be very, very important to actually enable societies to function, and that's why people should not be afraid of AI or hyperautomation. These are all nouns at the end of the day. We need means to kind of function. And if you stand back, that's really what Waylay is about.
Yeah, I imagine it sounds like an obvious one, but you must be seeing a massive uplift now of organizations who are coming to you for those very conversations where they're saying, look, we're an airline, we're a bank, we're a logistics or shipping or transport company. We can, as you said, we can't keep investing in this digital infrastructure, digital transformation. It's just not our core business. Have you seen this wave of demand coming to you and the team at Waylay with that in mind, where people are just saying, look, we want to go back to our core business. Can you help us solve some of these big challenges? I imagine that's a moot point in many ways, but is there some examples you can give us where you've had that happen and been able to address those?
Yeah, and the most important thing is experience.
Right.
So therefore, we've been around since 2014, and in that period, we've accumulated and implemented many hundreds of different use cases. And what that is, at the end of the day, is a repository of knowledge. And remember, our system is a learning system, so that, we talked about intelligent event correlation, okay? So it's really about understanding and building a repository of experience to understand that actually patterns will emerge. And these patterns, you build these rules, you understand the nature of the customer use cases, and so you build this knowledge. More and more, the big companies are coming to a company like Waylay to say, we're not going to bark our requirements at you. We're at the point where we actually need to listen, and so therefore to learn from your experience, and please help us to make sure that if we're going to do this, that we do it the right way. We listen to your advice, and the way that we take our first steps, which the first steps are always critical, that you guide us. So we have very, very large, the Fortune 500 type customers who are more than willing to do that. You mentioned partners earlier on. We have a very close partnership with Capgemini, and I'd like to think that will be very important to Capgemini as a company going into the future. Here's a great example of a company that actually are embracing, not only they're brilliant in what they do in terms of understanding and briefing their customers on new technology and trends and things like that, but this is actually, in my opinion, a very progressive company, because what they've identified are probably 6 important technology platforms that are going to be fundamental to the decadal shift. Waylay is one of those, and we'll start off in financial services. Very interesting use cases where, again, the rule of 80 that you talked about earlier, kicks in again. But I can see that, you talked, like, I look at business as democratization or the distribution of IP or knowledge or value, right? So we'll be working with partners like Capgemini to ensure that globally, the accessibility to what we do will be, if you're in Vietnam, it'll be the same as if you're in New York, in terms of being able to get, it could be a healthcare use cases down the road, all manner of things. But we're not going to bottle everything up in Waylay. We're going to work with really, really high quality partners like Capgemini as well.
Fantastic. And you mentioned a couple of really quick points that I'd like to circle back to. You mentioned with regard to the trends that you sort of saw, you think are coming over the horizon, and we won't hold your feet to the fire on those. But from a crystal ball gazing point of view, you mentioned some of the shift in regional spaces. And, when we think about the 54 territories and states in Africa and over 1.1 billion people in there now, and both China and India are sort of in the area of 1.4, 1.5 billion people. When we aggregate those, we end up with nearly 4 billion human beings. It's easy to forget that 380 odd million people in America and 60, 70 million people in parts of Europe and countries, or even in our case in Australia, a mere 26 million people. I mean, these are rounding areas. There's more than 36, 37 million people just in Shanghai as a city. That's our entire population as a nation. And they are, emerging economies in many ways. And in context of what MWC will be covering, I know last year I had a great conversation on camera with John Hoffman, the CEO of GSMA, a longtime associate, and he was sharing some insights around the announcement of Mobile World Congress Africa. And one of the things he said, which really stood out for me, was that the shift from no phone to a phone across Africa will probably be a zero to hero, where they go from not having a device to having a 5G enabled device. And they won't hear that, they won't hear that boing boing modem sound. They won't have a fixed line. They won't have a computer. They'll just go to a phablet. And what that means is that, there's this jump into technology, full immersion, that in many cases in developed regions, certainly in Australia, in Europe, UK, EMEA, America, et cetera, and parts of Northern Asia, we've experienced this over time. They're going to have it overnight, and the scale at which they're going to demand those services, I think many people are going to be coming to you in droves, saying we need to be able to automate this process. We need to be able to scale it, because we're now not just with a BSS and OSS solution onboarding 1 million people a year. We're doing that per week, and companies just aren't ready for that. So I'm very excited for that, because I think that's going to completely change the types of things we can do in the world when all these people come out of university. They become available to the workforce and do great things. Well, look, it's been absolutely. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go.
Yeah, not necessarily from universities. I think the greatest critical mass of entrepreneurs here from the world are actually going to come from Africa. And they're very, very skillful in understanding services in particular. Sort of application kind of led services. So what we do, I guess, if you go back to low and no code, is to make that. I guess you don't have to take the very traditional journey from an academia point of view. In China, it's very different. Society, everything, the way that things are organized, the education system, all that kind of stuff. So their evolution and revolution, I guess, is probably more like, I think, Australia, and United States, European countries, and things like that. But I think Africa's the place. Where entrepreneurial capabilities are really, really going to come to the fore. And I'm delighted, because just in terms of social conscience, and understanding history and all that kind of stuff. I think it's a very exciting era for Africa, and I'm delighted that. I'm a telecoms entrepreneur by background originally, so therefore I understand all the infrastructural stuff. But now that the infrastructure is in place, people can actually get to work, innovating. And so I'm very excited for Africa.
Indeed, and necessarily they are innovative, and I believe, as you said, they're going to be the change agent to keep an eye on, because you've got a bunch of people who are unbanked currently that are going to get and they're not connected, they're not banked, they're going to be connected, they're going to connect very fast on a smart device, and they're immediately going to have access to money in ways they never had before. Now, to wrap us up, what's the best way for our audience to get in touch with the team at Waylay and start a conversation about how you can help their organization about all the things we talked about today and various things that we haven't even had a chance to tap into?
Well, a very simple way. I mean, I would love people to reach out to us. We support, demo conversations. If you have requirements, we have a dedicated specialty teams that can support you. Best way to reach out to us is just write to marketing@waylay.io. That's just a simple central email address. And I've mentioned we're not a huge company yet. Okay, even the CEO takes an interest in what's in our inbox. As I say, we can't talk to everybody. We do have to control, and be a little bit structured around the kind of use cases, that we can support discussions around, but we'll do our best to talk to
Indeed.
as many.
Well, you certainly have an ecosystem of partners and integrators and over time resellers, and a great network of customers to look to for examples. So we will, as always, have full details of links to your website, to your company LinkedIn profile and the other relevant social profiles that you have, and ensure that it's a very easy road to you. One thing I'd like to wrap up on, and thank you very, very much for your time. You've shared some amazing insights into you personally, your role professionally, and certainly the company. And I know we would love our audience to come and see you in person and introduce themselves and swap some business cards and so forth, because that still is a thing at Mobile World Congress. But I'm going to invite our audience to reach out early. I think now more than ever, is a time where conversations should be started from boardroom down. CEOs should be talking to yourself and your team about some of the upcoming challenges that they're facing that they're aware of, but also potentially to have you, as you said, share insights into kind of what you see around the world that they may not be aware of, that you can actually help them shed some light on. Because without that strategic direction from the board and the CEOs, without a go-to-market roadmap, and certainly with partners like yourselves, they are going to get caught out and be left behind by companies who are innovative and are having those conversations. So for our audience, we'll have plenty of details on how to connect wherever you see this video and wherever you see the digital and social media promotion and application for it. We'll have links to Waylay and the team there. We invite you to have a conversation now as early as possible and get ahead of this, because some of the challenges that Waylay can help you with are very exciting, and to be left behind them is potentially a commercial issue that you don't want to be discussing at board level if you've missed the boat. Leonard, what a pleasure having you on the show. I cannot wait to have you back again soon. And in the meantime, have a great event at Mobile World Congress, and we'll look forward to having you back again soon.
Dez, it's been a total pleasure. Thank you. And everybody stay safe out there, so to speak.
Indeed. Safe travels. See you again soon.